I'm Spencer Matthews, and you're listening to Untapped, where elite athletes and inspirational people show us how we can all unlock our true potential. This week, we're joined by Helen Glover, one of Britain's most decorated rowers and a true symbol of perseverance. Helen made history as a double Olympic gold medalist and world champion, dominating a sport she only discovered in her 20s. But after stepping away to start a family, she made an extraordinary comeback, returning to compete at the Tokyo Olympics as a mother of three, defying every expectation about age, balance, and what's possible. Let's get untapped with Helen Glover. Helen, thanks so much for joining me on Untapped.
Thanks for having me.
It's a great pleasure. Shall we start with potentially the most important question that I'm going to ask you whilst you're here?
Oh.
Does Steve really give you a back massage every night?
Do you know what? So many people messaged me when they saw that headline. They were like, "What?" No. So when I was in full training, I would actually, since having the kids and being in full training, I couldn't get to physio. And so often I'd be like, "Steve, I've got a sore elbow, I've got a sore knee," and he'd be like, "Fine, stick my elbow in there." And it was exaggerated that he gives me a back massage every night. But no, to be fair, he's very good and very understanding.
Can you take me back to how you got into rowing? Because it was sort of unprecedented, wasn't it? You started and then a couple of years later you were in the Olympics.
Pretty much. Like, that is a very simplified version of it, and it makes it sound much easier than it was. But yeah, rowing wasn't in my life till I was 21 years old. And for a sport where, it takes years and years of training, I got into it a lot later in life. And it was only because London got the bid for the Olympic Games, and they launched this talent ID called Sporting Giants. They were looking for tall people who could be good at rowing, volleyball or handball, 3 sports that height is helpful for. And I turned up, was tested, and I was asked to start rowing. And I just started my job as a PE teacher, and I was trying to pay off my student debt. And it seemed like this ridiculous thing that 4 years before London, I was thinking about trying to get there in a completely new sport for me. But it was like my whole life I've been really, really sporty. I love sport, and I'd got to a reasonable level at different sports. And I had never, I looked at it when I was 21, given this opportunity, and I thought, I've never actually just given my all to anything. I feel like I've always done something with something holding me back. I've never thrown myself into something. I thought, this is my last chance to just throw everything at something, and that was rowing.
It must have felt like such an interesting opportunity at the time. Did you know that of the 3 sports where they were looking for women such as yourself, that rowing would be the one? Or did you think that there could be a chance that you could be a professional handball player?
I was convinced I was going to be volleyball or handball, because I was fairly coordinated and I'd done a lot of hockey and things. And I was really small for a rower, so I didn't even make the height criteria. I thought I did. I applied online, and then I got there and I was like, I'm a foot shorter than everyone here. I wasn't the right shape, wasn't the right height. But we had to use physical tests. And years later, I asked my coach, why did you choose me? I didn't even fit what science had said was going to be the criteria for this. And he said that he saw me on the fitness tests, and he was like, you were a mongrel. You were not the perfect pedigree dog we were looking for, but you pushed yourself harder than anyone in the room. And that's why I wanted to work with you.
Sleep and recovery are the most important parts of training, and still, so many people get them wrong. We all talk about good sleep habits, avoiding screens, winding down properly, but hardly anyone talks about the actual mattress that they're sleeping on. I can do everything right, train hard, eat well, recover properly, but if I don't sleep well, I feel it straight away. I'm not sharp, not recovered, and definitely not ready to perform. That's where Simba comes in. Their hybrid mattress design, built using the sleep data of over 10 million people, combines AeroCoil springs and Simbatex foam to keep you cool, supported, and undisturbed all night. It helps you recover properly so that you wake up ready to go again. They've also got adjustable hybrid pillows and cooling duvets, all designed with the same science behind them. And they've picked up over 100 sleep awards, including 6 Which Best Buys. You can try Simba completely risk-free with free next-day delivery, a 200-night trial, and a 10-year guarantee. And if it's not right for you, they'll just collect it. No hassle, no repacking. Because if you're serious about training and recovery, you've got to take your sleep seriously too. Check them out at simbersleep.com/untapped. On this show, we talk a lot about energy, not just having it, but how you use it. And one thing I've learned from the world of endurance sport is that energy isn't something you waste, it's something you master. Hive brings that same mindset into your home, putting you in control of your energy every single day. Everyone knows them for their smart thermostats, but Hive has evolved into something greater, eco-tech that helps generate, manage, and use cleaner energy. And with solar, you can get the sun to work for you, turning sunlight from your roof into greener energy. It's about generating your own power, helping to lower bills, and creating the freedom to live life on your terms. And with the Hive app, you have the power to track, manage, and optimize your energy in one place. Clear, simple, and built around you. And here's the best part. Anything you don't use, you can sell back to the grid, meaning you'll get energy companies to pay you. Hive puts that power directly in your hands. Your home, your energy, and your future. Hive. Know your power. Visit hivehome.com to find out more. Subject to survey and suitability, output varies by season and may not cover all electricity usage. Paid for surplus requires an eligible SEG tariff. Savings vary by home and usage. If you're enjoying this conversation, please do me a favor. Hit subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. It only takes a few seconds, but it really helps the show, and it means that we can keep bringing you incredible guests. Now, back to the show. That's incredible that, your athleticism essentially without fitting the boat brought you to where you are today. You've won 2 Olympic gold medals and a silver, took a break to become a mother, came back to the sport. What was it about rowing that you eventually came to love? Or did you love it straight away?
Oh, I hated it to begin with.
Really?
So I've always loved every sport, and it looks like it was this journey that was from getting into a boat to 4 years later being an Olympic champion. But actually it was from when I was tiny. It was like that was building my engine. I was running, I was playing tennis, I was swimming. Like my engine was built there. And over 4 years, I honed it into rowing. That's what I always think when people say, oh, you only did it in 4 years. I go, no, I trained my whole life. And it just so happened to be that rowing was the thing I found the right people and in the right time and place for. But yeah, it was definitely built up over like a long period of time.
And you say that you were coordinated, so you thought you would end up as in the handball or the volleyball session. Not that rowers are not coordinated, but what was it about that kind of brutish nature to the sport where, the higher your power output, almost the more valuable a member of the team you are. When did you begin to realize that you had a competitive edge in that space where, when you were put on an ergo next to somebody else, that you had the kind of determination to pull harder than them?
So that took a really long time, actually. So for the first couple of years when I was training, I almost quit so many times. I probably cried almost every night and thinking, what am I doing? It was so hard. I was working as a PE teacher to fund my training, trying to train when I could in the day to beat girls who were on a full-time training program in a sport where everyone was a foot taller than me. Like it really seemed impossible. 2 years out from the games, if anyone had said to me, here's a ticket to a seat in any boat, you're going to come last, but you're going to go to an Olympics, I would have snatched it out of their hands. It felt like it was totally out of my reach. And I get on the rowing machine and I would be the worst by so much. And I think partly it's, experience and fitness, and partly it was that I was a lot smaller. So my power per kilo was quite good, but my actual score wasn't great. And then I remember just going like, enough is enough. Like pity party's over. Stop questioning this decision. I can't change my height and I can't do much about my weight. Like if I'm going to be shorter than you, I'm going to be stronger than you. And if I'm going to be shorter than you, I'm going to row technically better than you. So actually it took it took years to get my watts and my scores up to everybody else. But I just honestly put in hours on technique and on lifting. And I was then quite quickly became the strongest person there. And then therefore more power per stroke. And then all the tiny, tiny things I was doing on my technique started to show. and I started to beat people on the water. And I mean, having said that, when I got onto the rowing team to race my first World Championships, I was like the bottom, last choice, last chance, very much the like extra add-on of the team when we first came on, me and Heather 2 years before the games. And so, but yeah, it was through, I think I reached a point where I actually, for the first time in my life, was like, okay, I'll prove you wrong then. And I just put my head down and worked.
Where do you think the desire to not give up came from? So when it was as hard as you say it was, when you were crying every night, what was it about the sport or that particular situation that made you want to prove people wrong or prove the team wrong?
I think there are so many things. I don't think it was the sport. I wasn't like, I love rowing, this is my thing. I found the love of my sporting life. Rowing for me at that point was a vehicle that could take me to the Olympics, and I had been told that could happen, and so I was going to apply myself to rowing. It took me definitely finding Heather as a teammate and finding the right situation for me to start to love the sport. But there were a couple of things that made me think it's worth it. One was having a coach that really believed in me and who threw everything through when I was really rubbish and not doing very well. He still said, I still think you can do this. And so having Paul, my first coach, say those words to me was like, okay, that is the thing I'm going to hold on to. And I think the second thing was that a bit of maturity. I think if I had gone through that in my teens, which is probably what I had experienced with other sports, I always held a little bit back because I just thought, if people don't think I can, or if why should it be me? I always felt like Olympians were people who were nothing like me. I'd never met an Olympian, never held an Olympic medal, didn't happen to people like me. I just think I've so had that in my belief that I just never fully gave it everything. And then I think the maturity of going, no, I don't think I'm going to do this, but I really, really don't want to look back and think I didn't try.
So what's the order then of how you came to be Olympic champion? Because that is surely the high, is that the highest of highs that that's possible as an athlete? Winning in London. What were the steps and how did you get to that moment? And was that the greatest moment of your sporting career?
Yeah, so I met Heather. We started training together. When we trialled to get onto the team together, like I say, we were the bottom barreled like extras added on, like the spare boat, basically. If they needed anybody else to jump in, we were the ones that were like taking your place if you had a cold. But we then got enough funding from the National Lottery to just quit our jobs and just to live off that. And then suddenly, not having to work and being able to train, suddenly our performance was going up and up and up. And about 3 months after we joined the team, we raced our first World Championships together. And we got a silver medal, and it was just so unexpected, I think, for the rest of the world. But then I think that just changed something. It really changed something in both me and Heather. And the expectation is that you look for the top performing boat on the team, and you train every year to try to get into that top performing boat against your teammates. And Heather and I just looked at each other and we were like, let's do this together. Let's stay together and let's try and win an Olympic gold.
So was that your decision? Or because I was about to ask, were you ever nearly broken up to be paired with somebody more obvious?
Yeah, like every year they would retest and check that it's the right combination. I think we had a unique thing where the whole was greater than the sum of its parts. So when we were together, we would definitely, no question, the fastest combination there was there. Yet we each had our strengths and weaknesses, and individually could have done well with other people, but together it just left no question.
Winning gold at your first Olympics, it must have felt, I'm just suddenly thinking about certain moments in my life that are kind of almost hard to believe that you're so proud of yourself, but it can't be anything like what you've experienced. So I'm just wondering if you can surmise how that felt.
I think total disbelief. I feel like it's a bit of a disappointing answer because everyone expects you to go, it was amazing and I had this adrenaline rush and I punched the air, and I'm like, no, I crossed the line and I felt relief. I felt, even though we'd gone in as underdogs really, because even though we were favourites for the event, but only if you were a bit of a rowing geek, you might know that. You know, we hadn't won anything significant. We weren't known names in any way. And in the build up to London, I remember us sitting down and going, let's keep it that way. We didn't really do interviews. We didn't, our faces weren't out there. We just like, we could only win quietly once. And if we're going to do it, and if we're going to take the pressure off, it's going to be now. And so...
Whose decision was that, sorry, to kind of... That's such an interesting approach to that, I feel. That, you know, you knew you had a chance of winning, but you didn't want people to know that almost.
Yeah.
Because it would add pressure to the situation.
That's exactly it. That's exactly
so
it. And I think it's very much the nature of both Robin, our coach, and Heather. They're two of the most understated people you've ever met. And I think at the time we were so invested in, our world existed around this race. And to say we didn't care about the press, we didn't care about the fanfare, we didn't care about any of that is just, we didn't. We just, I think we had this paranoia that if we step into that world, it could all start to go wrong. Like, who are we? Who are we to start doing interviews, and who are we to start talking about the fact that we might become Olympic champions? We're like, I still was barely calling myself a rower at this time. I was still coming to terms with the fact that I was going to be an Olympian. It felt like way above my station to be talking like that. So I thought, just stay in your bubble and keep doing what you're doing.
Did you have to win events before the final, or was it just a straight race?
Yeah, so we raced a heat, and our heat went really well. We got like an Olympic record in the heat, and that was the moment where things started to change, because it was the first race of the first day of the whole of the Olympic Games, and it was like we'd won the Olympics. The noise, the press, the reporters, everything was electric. It was just a level that I'd never experienced before and would never experience again. You know, this interest and excitement from the whole nation. And we raced on day 5 of the Olympic Games. And although until that point we'd had lots of great medals, we hadn't won a gold. And I remember going to bed the night before our Olympics, and I went to physio before I went to bed, and they put on the One Show, and they had a psychologist talking about why our Team GB athletes with this home advantage, why they weren't bringing back the gold, and why all our athletes are, you know, struggling to bring the gold. And I was like, it could be us. It could be us tomorrow. And when we went down to race, you know, you walk in through the crowds of people all cheering you in and cheering you to your boat, and they're all kind of shouting, "You could win our first gold." And I'm like, I don't want to be told that. I want this to be a normal day. I want this to be just another race. But it's not another race, because, you know, my gran, who was in her 90s, it was a home game, so she made it. You know, she made it there, and she was sat under the flags as they were raised at the end of the race. You know, it's like all these things which the uniqueness of it being a home games made the experience just so special.
It's almost like you can't imagine that. So you knew your gran was there. You know that there's this pressure from the public, but it's almost like magical pressure, right? Because it's not real pressure, because no one's actually expecting it, maybe, but it's kind of... But there is this feeling in the air that you could win. At what stage of the race did you know you had won?
So Heather and I have got different versions of this. For me, after the first stroke, this is very unlike me. I'm like Mrs. Paranoid. I always think we're going to lose. But we just jumped out the start, and we had won all our races that year really well. And if we have a good start, we knew there wasn't much of a chance that anyone could catch us up. And we jumped out, and I was like, this is a dream. And Heather afterwards admitted that she thought the finish line was much. She got a bit confused with where the markers were, and she thought we had reached halfway, and we were only like a minute into the race. So she admitted afterwards, she was like, "Yeah, I was absolutely hanging on for the last bit," whereas I was like loving it. But yeah, I crossed the line, and I still couldn't comprehend it. I was enjoying the moment with Heather, and I was trying to force myself to take it all in. I was trying to force myself to have a moment where I could remember this day and be present, but it was like an out-of-body experience.
Is the reason that you can't have that full moment just because you're so spent in the sporting moments? And those next Olympics then in Rio, when you won gold again. Was that a completely different experience in terms of the pressure that was felt? Because obviously now you're returning, to defend your title essentially, as opposed to being, the underdog, or you say the favorite, but you'd need to be a rowing nerd to know that, you're now probably the favorites, even if you're not, right? For England, who perhaps are not rowing nerds, still they might expect you to win again. Was that lining up on the start line any different, or was the fact that you were Olympic champions just cemented in you at this stage? And did you expect to win Rio as well, or how did that pan out? It
was so different. And I think that we from London to Rio we were unbeaten. So it was like 55 races we had done. And I remember.
So you must kind of know that you're going into this.
But that is the line from the press is like, it's almost like headlines written before we'd even raced. And for me, I'm sat there going, anything can happen. And I've never been more quiet, more kind of low actually around a racing situation than we were that year going into Rio. It's like the only possible outcome is you achieve what's expected. Anything else other than that is a disaster. Whereas, in London, we kind of could have done anything and everyone would have been like, woo, they're Olympians. But you can only win quietly once. And so we had done that. We'd done that in London. And so going into Rio, we both really felt the weight of it, didn't enjoy the weight of it. But we just kept coming back to it's just us. It's just, and like I say, Robin, our coach, his job was being a perfectionist about the rowing stroke. And he always said to us, I don't care how you do. I care how you row. And if you row like I think you can row, you'll win. And I just think we held on to that because that's the controllable factor. Like I can control how I go out and row. And we know we've done the training to get the result if we do that. But it's easier said than done when your expectations suddenly change.
Obviously in Rio, circumstances are different. You're returning champion. There's kind of more weight on your shoulders potentially, even though there's probably more confidence maybe. When did you realise that you'd won that race? Obviously it was in the first stroke before in London. So was it any different in Rio?
It was so different. My paranoia was so through the roof that I didn't believe we'd won it till I heard there's a beep when you cross the line. And I was to that beep thinking we're going to lose.
Was the second
it wasn't even that
really close?
Like it was. People watching wouldn't have felt that same panic I had. It was, it was a couple of seconds in it, which in rowing is fairly comfortable. But I just had such a sense of doom, impending doom if this goes wrong, that until it went right and until we had crossed the line, I just wouldn't believe it. But then we crossed the line and all those things that I couldn't feel in London, I felt. I did punch the air and I did feel that rush of adrenaline and the excitement, and I could straight away say, I've just won the Olympics. So it was almost like all those feelings that I wanted to feel and didn't come in London were just there. And I think it made all that paranoia and stress and worry about not winning, it definitely made it probably sweeter.
Where are your 2 gold medals now?
I honestly have no idea. They're in a drawer. I lose them all the time. If you ever go to like a school talk or something,
as bad as Jared Leto losing his Oscar.
No, once they nearly got thrown out, I keep them in socks so they don't like jangle together, and I left them overnight in the changing rooms and the cleaners nearly threw them out. But I've got to keep them more secure.
I think that's where we're different. Okay, if I was a double Olympic gold medalist, they'd be framed in the bathroom, I think.
See, this is where every other part of my life is chaos. And then you get to rowing and I'm like, everything has to be perfect.
Did you think that when you settled down and decided to become a mother that you would ever come back to the sport?
No way. So we had raced in London and won. We raced in Rio and won. And I think that I was just done. That there was nothing else to prove, nothing else to do. Steve and I were getting married like 3 weeks after Rio, and Heather was retired. Like everything was pointing to retirement, and largely because I knew I wanted to start a family. And once you do that, I think in the sport that I was in, no one ever asks you if you're going to row again, because the two don't really go hand in hand. No one had ever gone to the Olympics from GB after becoming a mum. And so as soon as I had my first child in 2018, that was just nail in the coffin, done. No, I didn't row from, I think, our Rio final till, for another 4 years. I didn't go on the row. I hate the rowing machine. Didn't go on the rowing machine.
That's
didn't really get in a
crazy
boat. I was just done.
So you didn't row at all in the interim?
No, I mean, I did I ran a marathon, I did a half Ironman, and I kind of went back to my roots really, which was just really loving sport and loving exercise. But rowing, that was my life in rowing done. Yeah.
That's it. I find that amazing how did the opportunity come back around to get back in a boat?
So it was COVID, and I had just had twins in the end of January. And then when lockdown came, they were about 6 weeks old. And the only thing we had in the house was a rowing machine. And so we were literally in lockdown. When the twins had a nap, I would get on the rowing machine and the sound of the fan would send them to sleep. And so nap time, the best way of getting them to sleep was sitting on the rowing machine a little while. And the more lockdown extended, the more I was getting some fitness back and training. And then the Olympics was moved and was postponed for a year. And by that time, I was like, I'm getting quite fit, and my scores were so close to what they were when I was a full-time athlete. And I just remember thinking, I don't know what it is in me that's thinking this is even possible, but I really want to just go out and see if I could get on the plane to Tokyo, show my little girl what's possible. Or I don't know. At that time, I definitely didn't think I had unfinished business in rowing, but I think I probably had unfinished business in the fact that when I left the sport to start a family, there was never a route back in for me, and that didn't feel right, didn't feel great.
What did Steve think?
I think he saw it coming when he saw me on the rowing machine, and he was like, oh God, here we go. He is nothing but supportive, and I think that he just saw it as an opportunity. It was less than a year, I think we all made crazy decisions in that period and look back and go, how did I get down that road? When I guess people experience lockdown and COVID so differently. And for me, it made me do something that I never could have imagined putting myself out there to do. And challenging a system in a way that had never been, I had always been toe the line, listen to the coach, do what you're told, turn up at that time. Don't challenge a system even if you see problems in it. And here I was sticking my hand up and saying, I think I can do it a different way. And that was very unlike me. In terms of post-pregnancy and post-childbirth, I was pretty fortunate in the way my body recovered. And when I look back now, I just think I was not educated enough in how to do it. There wasn't really the information for me, especially I didn't even go to doctor's appointments and things like that post getting on the rowing machine. So I was just trying to research as much as I could. I was just working out how my body felt. And in some ways, I think that helped because I've been for a couple of Olympic cycles, I've been on a training program written fairly generically for every single member of the team. And suddenly I was able to wake up and go, what do I feel like doing this morning? And my natural tendency is probably to do too much. So there was a bit of kind of reining myself in, but that happened kind of naturally because I had 3 kids under 2 years old to look after. So I was like, what can I do around them?
I'm one of those people who used to think that I knew my body quite well until I started using Whoop. I began to see exactly where I was overtraining, under-recovering, and basically sabotaging my own progress without realizing it. I've been wearing this particular new Whoop every day since it launched a few weeks ago, and the insights have been amazing. The latest thing that I'm hooked on is their new health span feature. It's not just about adding years to your life, it's about adding good years. Whoop Health Span gives you your true physiological age and shows whether you're aging faster or slower over time, powered by 9 science-backed metrics like sleep quality, VO2 max, and lean muscle mass. It's like having a crystal ball for your long-term health, but one that you can absolutely do something about today. And the best bit is that you can try the brand new Whoop and get access to features like health span, pace of aging, along with all of their core metrics, absolutely with zero risk. They'll send you the brand new Whoop 5 for free. Your first month is free. And if you're not sold by day 29, you get all of your money back. Free to buy, Free to try. Just hit the link in the description. When you're tired, dehydrated, and struggling to concentrate, making smart decisions gets a little tough. That's why I take Vitals by Heights every single day. Initially, my team recommended it to me to keep me firing on all cylinders because it's not just about keeping my legs moving, it's about keeping my brain switched on and ideally making better life choices. Vitals are packed with 20 essential nutrients, including omega-3s for brain power, B vitamins for energy, and vitamin D3, all formulated by scientists and dietitians. And it just gives me that extra edge, better focus, sharper thinking, sustained energy, faster recovery, and deeper sleep. All in 2 capsules a day. Vitals are the smartest way to fuel your body and mind, so give it a go. Get 20% off your first month subscription at heights.com/untapped or use code UT20 at checkout. Do you remember what you pulled the day that you realised that you could probably still compete in the Olympics?
I remember, yeah, I do actually. Steve reminded me of it. So I said to him, right, if I'm going to do this, if I'm going to make the coaches didn't even know I was doing this. It was just under the cover of lockdown. So if I'm going to make the call to the coaches to say I think I can get in a boat and not embarrass myself, I need to do a 2-kilometre test on the rowing machine. That's like the standard test that you do. And so I was like, right, take the kids out for a walk across the fields. I'm going to, in the living room, do a 2K test. And I did a test that was just a couple of seconds off my PB. And to say I was on the floor, puking on the road, like doing all of that. I absolutely gave everything. But Steve said he remembered me walking down the road towards him. He's got the pram, he's got the twins in the pram, our toddler beside him, and he sees me walking towards him. He's like, the way you were, even though you were staggering because you just done a 2-kilometre test, the way you were walking, I knew it went well. And I felt really empowered actually. And I thought, you know what, on my own, I've managed to get myself to a place that is really close to what I was before when I was on a full-time training program. And I don't think that's superhuman. I don't think it's super special. I think it's just that I had so much built up over all those years, probably a bit of mum strength thrown in, and then definitely a bit of sticking my middle finger up to the people who thought I couldn't do it. As soon as I made that phone call to say that I'm going to try to come back, the answer was no, thank you, it's okay.
Really?
And at that time, the team didn't have piles and piles of people queuing up who had Olympic medals, to go to Tokyo. And
different people than
the team. The team had changed a lot, and the management had changed a lot. And I phoned up when I made the phone call. It was very much like testing the ground, seeing what the opportunities would be, just a kind of a friendly call to say, look, I'm thinking about doing this. And I hung up the call and I was like, I'm doing it. Because if you tell me I can't.
So hang on, so you pull this no doubt extraordinary 2K, which by the way, can you remember what your PB is?
It wasn't extraordinary. It was like a 6:42, I think I did when I was in lockdown.
Okay.
Which, considering my training, I was like, great, that's fine.
And your PB was 6:40?
Yeah, around about 6:40, yeah.
And you decide to make the call to the new team. Were you familiar with who they were?
Roughly. I didn't know them. I hadn't worked with them. So, yeah, I didn't expect the red carpet to be rolled out, but I expected a bit of,
respect.
Yeah, or just, interest that we could make this work, and that's interesting. I wonder how we can kind of combine you with the team. I think that the extra issue is that it's a team that's trying to work around COVID as well. So it's not only me saying, oh, I've got 3 kids and I'm thinking about coming onto the team, which is new. It's also a team who are so tightly bubbled that someone with 3 kids putting their hand into the mix when the Olympics has been moved for a year. There's so many moving parts. So imagine getting a call from me and going, I think I can get in a boat.
I think I'd find that really exciting if I was.
Well,
if I was
to
one
be
of the
honest, I
England
thought that
coaches.
maybe there would be a little bit of that, but yeah, it was the initial conversation led me to believe that there wasn't going to be open doors for me, but I was going to just have to push them open by going in, being good enough, and beating people. And so that's what I managed to do, and got myself into a boat with Polly Swan, she's an amazing woman. She actually, through COVID, she's a doctor, and she went back into the wards and was working as a doctor through COVID. So we'd both had these really unique experiences during COVID. She was kind of one of the ones that was ready to go out to Tokyo in 2020, and she'd had to wait for a year in 2021. So we went out together, and getting on the plane with Polly to go and race, leaving the kids behind to go and do that was one of the proudest moments, because every other time and every other Olympics, it definitely hadn't been handed to me, but the pathway had been laid for me. I was told you could be a good rower. I was told, here's your coach. I was told, here's your boat. Here's your training program. And this time I did it from a living room with people telling me I couldn't. And it just felt very different.
It's a pretty remarkable story, to be honest. The comeback is amazing. Was Steve really proud? When you got into the Tokyo team, and was there a moment with the team where it was kind of like, okay, yeah, like you're coming to Tokyo?
Yeah, there was. I remember the day I came home and I said, it's official that we're going. And I remember that being probably a moment where we kind of stopped in time and took it all in. But other than that, he was really proud, but both of us were just trying to keep our heads above water, to be honest. Like, he works, freelance and travels all over the world for his work. So his whole 2 years had been thrown up in the air. He was suddenly trying to do so much childcare and juggling everything with twin babies and a tiny toddler, as I'm trying to juggle that with training. It was just so far from where we expected life to be that I think celebrating it in the moment was really hard, because I think we probably didn't realise how much we were, as a family, in survival mode to make it happen for me, actually. And I think that, I guess some of that's the single-mindedness of being an athlete. And I think to prevent that ever going too far, I made 3 rules. As soon as I started, I made 3 rules. I said, the family has to keep coming first. I have to be good enough, and not just kidding myself. And the children never have to suffer for me doing it or feel anything but a benefit from me doing it. And I would say, when I'm training for something, I'm a better mum. If I train, I come back energized, I feel purpose, I feel focus. I would say in so many areas, I'm the best version of myself. And it doesn't have to be training for Olympics.
I think that's so interesting, by the way. Like that's something that I can really relate to myself. Just that those feelings of, even if it's small steps, feelings of pride, feelings of getting something done nice and early in your day. It's kind of, it's completely changed my life. Even just like lifting weights in the morning at 7 a.m. Your day is just better for it, and you're a better father, and you show up better, and there's pride. Yeah. Even for just little things, like it doesn't have to be anything big or exciting. Then of course, things can compound and goals can get bigger, and the achievements can feel like more. But it all starts with just those decisions to look after yourself.
I think that's a really good word, is pride. Because if you can be just proud of something that you've done, I think there's just that internal ability to actually probably be kinder to people, to smile at people, I just feel like the positivity that you get from doing something that you're proud of. For me anyway, I feel like I'm a nicer person to be around.
I feel like probably a nice person to be around all the time.
Well, don't ask Steve that.
No, I won't. But it's kind of, it is interesting that I think, when people are kind enough to ask me questions sometimes, just even on Instagram or online or whatever, just kind of, how do I get out of this funk that I'm in? Just, any kind of exercise is just so important. Like, I think if, in theory, you were to lock me away for 3-4 days and remove my ability to kind of get out there and move, or get out there and lift weights, or roll jiu-jitsu, or go running, or whatever, like, it would be like a really serious problem, I think.
And the crazy thing is, I think, even though we know all this and we know the theory of it and we know how much it affects our lives and how better we feel, it's so easy not to a lot of the time. I think that as soon as the training program and the centre of excellence and the team around me was taken away, I was really looking forward to that. I was looking forward to freedom and to kind of not having to be there at 6:30 in the morning, not having to do anything. And then as soon as I didn't have that, I found it's hard to self-motivate. And when people say, I want to start running or I want to start training, I think you're actually probably in the hardest bit, because getting started it's not easy, and keeping up motivation and keeping up that daily grind is not easy.
Did you ever have any feelings around why there may have been some resistance to you coming back?
I feel like, number one, I think that the sport moves on, and I think when you've competed in Olympics and left the sport, there's a whole host of really talented, amazing athletes ready to go for the next games, and so there is this sense of actually it's a very different landscape that's moved on from when you were there. But I think probably more importantly, it was the fact that I now had kids, and this is a program not designed for children to be to be a part of the equation, and for any flexibility actually in the training. I think that's probably the most fundamental part of the rowing program I experienced previously, was the rigidity of it. You turn up at a certain time, you leave at a certain time. Everyone's on the same program. And there's this amazing camaraderie in that. You're all going through the same thing together. And as soon as someone puts their hand up and says they're going to do it slightly differently, so whether it's to kind of do some work around it or to have a family around it, that's just not really the way it's done. And I think there's probably an internal worry of, as soon as one person does something slightly differently, other people want to jump on the bandwagon. So there's probably a load of different things. But the unknown is probably the main thing, which is, we know we have a formula that works really well in rowing, and it's to do this training program. To veer off that and to be flexible enough for someone to have a family alongside it. But it was for me, I was thinking, well, the guys have done it. There have been lots of men who have had families and carried on for years and years. I know it's not the same as going through pregnancy and childbirth and breastfeeding, but when I first started, I didn't think I'd get to Tokyo. But I wanted to try, and I wanted to find out the issues and lay down the paving stone for the next woman who wanted to come have children and get back on the team. So it was as much fact-finding, pushing the boundaries and asking the questions as it was trying to get to the games.
I have one more question about just what a kind of general training week would look like. So at the height of your career, I know you achieved a very similar thing when you were training from home. But just for argument's sake, when you had no other job, and when you were being supported and you had a team around you and people training you, what did a typical week of training look like? And let's chuck in food as well. What would you be consuming on a daily basis to fuel this expenditure of energy?
It would be like 6 days a week, sometimes 7 days a week. We'd get a Sunday off every few weeks. So it'd be 6 days a week usually, starting with a 2-hour row, just steady state on the water.
What?
2 hours. Yeah.
Every day?
Well, hour and a half some days, like 90 minutes to 2 hours.
I wasn't expecting that at all.
But that's like your bread and butter session. It's first session. And I think that you have two options there. You can just get it done, or you can, what Heather and I did, which was just, try and make it as technically brilliant as possible. So you're just trying to keep going for as long as you can. It was about 24 kilometres first session. Second session would be...
That's insane, by the way. Genuinely, I was expecting you to say, 2K on the ergo, breakfast, weight session, quick blast in the boat.
So this is
that's
winter.
It,
this is winter, building block, big fitness, the longest mileage we'll do.
By the way, it's no wonder your aerobic capacity is wild.
Yeah.
That's just hours and hours and hours of kind of just aerobic training.
It's just steady state. Yeah, steady state training for that first session.
Like a zone 2 kind of just for 2-3 hours type thing.
Yeah. And then
every day.
Second session would be 12 to 16 kilometres, and that would probably be where we add in some work. So you'd be some steady state, warming up, and then something like 3 times 2 kilometres or longer pieces of work.
Yeah.
And then, so that's maybe an hour to an hour and a half that session. And then third session, if we have weights that day, would be lifting at about 4 or 5 o'clock.
That's an unbelievable training load. That makes me feel really unprepared for what I'm about to do.
I liken it to, I think swimming, cycling and rowing all have the same thing of it being low impact and big endurance based. So I think swimming, cycling and rowing all have that thing of just hours in. So yeah, so that'd be a typical day. And in terms of, if I was on training camp, I would aim for about 6,000 calories a day. For me, it was always kind of trying to keep my weight up, because when you're rowing, actually, you're carrying your body weight, but actually you're hanging it off the handle of the oar. So actually you can, if you're rowing well, you can hang your body weight and it helps produce more watts.
Yeah, I was literally about to say the wattage would be higher if you're heavier.
Yeah, so there's a bit of, you've got to carry it in the boat. So you don't want to be really heavy because it slows the boat down. But there's this middle ground where, like, if I ever got too light, you would kind of feel that power just isn't on the end of the blade. So it's kind of getting it in a good balance.
So moral of the story is if you absolutely love food, just be a rower.
And I love chocolate and I love cake. A cake, oh my God. So as soon as we started rowing and they were like, muffins for breakfast? We went to training camp and I thought, I found my sport. This is perfect.
How would you best advise our listeners can untap more of their potential?
I think, as we were saying, it's that belief. Never thinking it shouldn't be you. There's no reason it shouldn't.
Helen, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Please do follow or subscribe to the show wherever you're listening. It only takes a moment, but it makes a huge difference to us. We have truly incredible guests every single week, and you wouldn't want to miss an episode.